So, so it's November 13th at 6:15, facilities meeting. Just go around. Tamara Twardowski.
Scott Potts.
Casey Blankenmiller.
Jeff Scott.
Kathy Haynes.
Okay. Do you know is GCA coming? Is anybody from GCA coming?
I highly doubt it.
Okay. I didn't know because they've been coming. So.
They're up working hours.
I didn't get a chance to talk to them today yet.
Okay. All right. Well, you want to start?
I just want to kind of get a lot of just kind of an overview of some things. Well, the first two items, we can hit these really quick. High school bleacher curtains. We had discussed this last month's meeting. There would be side curtains for the retractable bleachers with logos. This is what they proposed. George Schmidt and I talked. He does not want anything on the far side where the parking lot is. He would only want the DB on the one side where you walk in the door. I didn't get a price for just one logo yet. Wasn't going to call them and waste their time to price it, but with the two logos is $6,800. Without is $5,390. Well, $6,814 to be exact, and $5,390 without. So my guess is you're going to be somewhere in the middle of that if we get one logo. His concern is they've chased a lot of kids out from underneath those bleachers. There's been many times where they go to retract them after an event and the brackets are just out of alignment and he's afraid something's going to get broken. So his intention is this year to get an extra M&G security guard, have them man that area to keep people from going underneath. For all of the events for the high school for this winter, it would be $2,800 before that. So pretty much in 2 years, we would pay for the bleacher curtains.
How durable are they? Can you cut them?
You can cut them, but I mean they're like a real soft canvas. The middle school has the same style, and they're attached to the sides, and then they retract when you retract they fold up with the bleachers.
But that is a suggestion that the things get out of line because people are back there?
People are back there, kids disappear and go underneath there, and then they knock the little, it's just 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch angle iron and stuff, and they knock it all out of alignment, so when that starts going back, it'll jam, and they gotta extend it back out, and then Bob or George has to crawl in there, figure out which one's caught, try to straighten it and make sure that's the only one kind of thing. So, there's very few school districts anymore that do not have them because it's a safety issue. My recommendation is to get them, but that's not my decision to spend that money. So
Do we really need the logo though?
the logo would look very nice. You don't need it, and you guys can make that decision to say no logo, and that's fine. George would be very happy with just curtains. If he could get a logo, I think that would make it even better.
I mean, the one side, that's the maintenance.
The one side is right where you walk in. So he just was, like I said, he would just be looking for a simple DB. We'd make it one color, maybe, a light blue with a white trim or something, maybe 2 color, but, we could do a 1 color, but, you're going to be somewhere probably in the neighborhood of $6,000 would be my guess. If I go halfway between the two quotes.
I mean, set up or cost. Once that's set, you do one.
Right.
Right. We can do 10 of them.
What's the time of order to fulfill?
I believe the lead time was 4 to 6 weeks when I talked to them. I don't remember exactly. I think it's in my email. I just didn't print the email out. 4 to 6 weeks is what sticks in my head. So we'd probably have it if I ordered them now. I'd have them hopefully by Christmas and have them installed over Christmas break. I mean, there's other events throughout the whole year as well. I'm just for a cost comparison. I said, what's a set cost that I can give them to compare if it's worthwhile or not? So you're talking, graduation and stuff like that, where kids disappear as well.
Gas festival.
Well, yeah, all kinds of events. So it's just the winter sports alone would be a cost of $2,800. So So that, my recommendation would say, you know, not to exceed $6,500 just to make sure we're covered, if that's what you're gonna recommend with the logo, without be $53.90. So, it's your guys' call, you know, or no altogether, so it's,
Is there any wiggle room?
they're custom made for us. Like I had to specifically measure every single bracket for them, heights, widths. It took me an hour and a half to make the measurements on their sheet. So it was a pretty involved process. I'm just saying, oh, I'm just going to go measure it quick and boom, I'm done. It was not. So.
Well, what do you think?
Sooner or later.
No, I mean, I'm okay with the curtain, and, I mean, I guess the logo does look nice, but I don't know that I have to have a logo. I could go either way on that.
Mr. Scott.
I mean,
Spent on worse things.
it's gonna last a while.
Well, and if you save $2,800 a year, even if, I mean,
Something
in
we
2
have.
years it pays for itself, right?
Right.
You have something where the security once they're gone, you have.
Right.
So, with the logo,
I'd go with,
okay.
let's do the big pieces.
So you said not to exceed 65?
I'd say 6,500. I think it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 62, probably in the real 62 would be my guess.
Okay.
Maybe less.
Sounds
Alright.
good.
So
Okay.
that's that one. Next item is stadium turf infill. There again, we did this the first year I came here. It's now 2 years later. We're definitely getting some push out in the center of the field. When I do turn it over, there's not a whole lot. I mean, there's still turf infill in the center. It's just not where it needs to be, not as thick as it needs to be. So to get 8 totes, which is 17,000 pounds of infill, which is what we put on 2 years ago, it's 5422.10 for the infill, and we would install that and spread that with the GCA ground staff.
Infills like that gravel, the weight that holds it down.
The little black
Yeah.
beads.
When you say push out, it's not accumulating to the outside of you.
It gets carried out in sneakers and washed out with rain, and I mean, it disappears. I mean, it's amazing. You go up in these little locker rooms in the annex, and you walk in there, and there's just black BBs all over the place, and you think they walked from the field all the way up here and still carried it up there. So, in the previous 6 years of that, prior to me coming here, they never added anything. They just drug it, smoothed it out, and kind of did, you know, what they needed to do. So, Turf Tracking Court, who does our impact testing, who does our deep cleaning, you know, even recommended about, you know, might not need all 8 of them. He said, but you probably need to spread 5 or 6 and then keep the other ones on hand as the winter kind of settles it. I'd love to get that on sometime during the winter. So as the winter comes through, it settles it all down, and then we can turn it over well. So
That flatten the infield off, or will that bring that?
that'll help stand that up a little bit. Yeah. The way that did you see the turf is starting to lay over? That's just normal at this time of the age of that turf. It'll start to lay over like that. So the more you can keep it in the center and try to keep that even fuller than what you probably should will help. The more you can keep the turf on end, it'll last longer because there's little microscopic spines in every blade of that turf grass that helps keep it straight. So when it's laying over, they break. So the more you can stand up, the longer, you know, it's going to last. And it's also a safety issue too with the impact tests. So we passed fine this year after he groomed it. He said you're going to be short. He said whether you add it or I add it, you're going to probably have to add something in the next year.
Casey,
So-
where are we with our saving schedule for replacing the turf?
We are, I think, the first year of the amount was 75,000. Last year was 80, and I think the upcoming year is 85. So we're going to be right around 200, 225 over 3 years set aside. And that's on the 5-year plan. So when Laura and I worked that out the first time, we set aside a certain amount. I think I did 75, 80, 85, 100, 110. I think is what it did for that 5-year going out.
And that's the replacement value?
That's going to get us real close. It'll get us real close.
Replacement value?
About 400. Twin Valley just did theirs with A-Turf, and they were like 378, 387, something like that. Field Turf was like another $60,000, so they went with A-Turf. And Field Turf's starting to realize the other companies are starting to produce some really good turf, and they got to start kind of bringing their price point down a little bit. So I think by the time our turf's probably due, you'll probably be in the neighborhood of about 450. 450, because you're looking probably another 7-8 years, if not maybe a little sooner.
I know Twin Valley's really flattened down quick for some reason.
Yeah. And they weren't grooming theirs as much as they should have been. They just,
Had more of a shine.
yeah. The new stuff they have is really nice. I was down there a few months ago for a seminar on ball fields, and we took a walk through, and it was the A-Turf stuff's just as nice as field turf for a lot less money. So I'm just asking for approval to spend 54, 22, 10 for the 8.
And is that something that it would be just general maintenance, or does that need a motion?
That would technically be probably general maintenance, but I
General
don't know if we
maintenance.
have an account code set up for the stadium. That's the only reason why I brought it up. I just don't know.
We don't have a budget in there for,
Right.
correct, so, I mean,
Okay,
Yeah.
so, well then, I mean,
It
I'll,
would
So that's
come
why I
out
kind
of
of figured
general
this would come out
fund,
of
but-
capital since we have the money set aside
okay.
for other stuff. That's why I brought it up.
Okay, then we'll make the recommendation. I just didn't know if it was just something we could just,
I had it approved 2 years ago. It went through the board.
and how much was it?
Like $50-some $100. 54, 22, 10.
Okay.
okay.
And that's from Field Turf USA. So,
Okay. Who's the curtain from?
CM Eichenlaub. EICHENLAUB company.
Okay.
They are the Hussey bleacher rep. And they do our bleacher inspections and our backboard inspections and that kind of stuff. So that's the first. I think that's really the only thing I'm cost-wise bringing up. The next ones are just want to kind of bring everybody up to speed on kind of where I'm working, what I'm working on, and kind of what my intentions are here in the next couple months. Mechanical upgrades and replacements. The high school. I brought in CM3 Building Solutions in. Their engineers came in to look at a lot of things to start really planning mechanical upgrades over the next 5 to 10 years to get a true fiscal plan in place for that. A lot of these things can be done through an ESCO, which is how they remodeled this building, how they remodeled the annex. That's one option. Another option is to put everything out to bid and have it spec'd, and you take low bid and the whole 9 yards. So I brought them in to kind of give me a quick overview at no cost to the school district. We kind of walked around. So annex gym, air handler units. Those 2 units are electric only. There's no air conditioning in the annex gym. Both of those units right now are down due to electrical issues. So I'm heating the annex gym with the small one. That's where the batting cage is. That's how I've been heating it for almost a year and a half. Actually, almost 2 winters now. It throws enough heat. The problem is the heat goes too high, and then it just kind of the gym gets a little chilly over the weekend. So we're going to look at either. I'm going to probably bring in Berkshire Mechanical over Christmas break, get a lift in here, have them up there, and try to figure out what's truly going on. You just can't gain access to it without having a lift and spending time up there. I know there's contactors issues, there's wires that burned off because we had a little electrical fire one day there that we quickly turned off, and luckily it was just smoking and nothing really burned. That we're going to try to get one unit up and running, try to use parts from both, and try to get one unit up and running, and just, like, I know one motor's bad on one, but a contactor's bad on the other, and so we're going to try to merge the two, because I hate spending money on 40, 55-year-old equipment that's electric only. So we have toaster heaters pretty much heating, the gymnasium. So even if I can just get one up and running, that I can run the fan to circulate air and use the small one, for my heat kind of thing. So that's that one. Pump room, water heaters, water softeners, reduction and relocation of pumps. This week I'm going to be in the process there's 12 wall mount water heaters in the mechanical room of the high school. We had four that were failed due to solids in the water, primarily iron. So I was able to run last year on 8 of them, and was able to handle the load pretty well. It makes our domestic hot water, but then it also goes to a heat exchanger to temper our heating loop for the school, for the entire the 1997 section of the school. Unfortunately, Friday I was in there, and 2 of them were leaking, and when I opened up the covers, those heat exchangers were toast. So we bought 4 on Friday. We tore the 6 defective ones out, and we found another one that is bad, that is just starting to fail. So we're going to get the 4 in, so we'll have 9 good ones. The reason this is happening is we don't have any water softeners in our high school. So our that's the only building we do not have any water softeners. I have nowhere to put water softeners unless I kind of redo that mechanical space. So therefore, the engineer and I looked at moving some pumps around, eliminating some pumps. It's an old style design that uses a lot of pumps. They can actually go down to, right now we have, I think it's 11 or 12 pumps. No, it's 14 pumps in that mechanical room, between recirc pumps for domestic hot water, pumps for the building, pumps for the cooling tower, pumps for everything, and we could probably go down to 4, just with newer designs and using existing stuff. So that way I can create space to put water softeners in there and then soften the water to the water heaters. So you're gonna, as the months kind of come on here, you're gonna start hearing me bring some pricing up and stuff like that, so you understand. I kind of want to give you a kind of overview of what's going on, because there's a lot of issues kind of happening that we need to kind of address that aren't going to be cheap fixes either.
Are these true tank?
They're tankless.
So they're like the Renai?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. So there's 12 on a wall. They're just hanging there, and then there's a 1,000 or 1,500 gallon tank that they go to. And then that tank goes to a heat exchanger with 1, 2, 3 different pumps, and then each 2 of there's 6 pumps for the domestic side. There's another pump for the domestic hot water. Then I have a cooling tower pump. I have 2 building pumps. I have another heat exchanger pump. None of them are on VFDs, so they're all just on-offs. It's 20-year-old technology. So I'm gonna, you'll be hearing more about that. The high school gym rooftop unit, rooftop 3D. There's 4 rooftops on the gym. 3D is junk. That's the one that vibrated, blew a pinhole in the one circuit, which blew the compressor. The other circuit has no refrigerant in it. I'm not spending a dime on the thing. It's 20 years old, and I'm not going to try to rehab it. I can replace it for probably what it'll cost to build the thing. With that, there again, that was designed 20 years ago. The outside air requirements were a lot different. So instead of just replacing it with a like rooftop unit, we're looking, having them give me a rough number on a true outside air only unit. And then as we replace the other 3, they would be just a straight rooftop with no outside air. We would handle the outside air with 1 unit, based on CO levels inside the gym, and then we would bring in outside air accordingly, rather than just dumping outside air in, having to treat it, having to heat it, cool it, the whole 9 yards. We're gonna hopefully limp through next summer with those rooftop units for air conditioning, because out of the 8 compressors, I think I'm down to 5 on that. So I'm able to run pretty much on 3 on a normal day. So, but there again, rather than throwing good money for just old technology, I want to make sure we're doing it the right way. And then there's another 9 makeup air units and rooftop units that handle other spaces on the roof of the high school. They're all 20 years old. They're all starting to have some failures of equipment. So we're going to look at what we can do to possibly change the way we use them to not have to spend a lot of money to condition a lot of air we don't need, kind of thing. So that's where the engineers come in, because they know what the new requirements are, how to do it the right way. And, the new thing is what they're going to is air cleaners. ASHRAE is allowing now air cleaners, so they more or less put a, like you remember the old smoke eaters in bars and stuff like that. It's kind of the same type of thing. That just takes the air from the space, cleans it, and changes about 10% of the outside air, and then brings it all back in. So they've been having a ton of success with those, energy-wise, because they use a lot less electric. So that's another one. So that's that. Amity Elementary, the atmospheric natural gas boilers, there are 10. There again, it's 15-year-old technology. There's 10 150,000 BTU Weil-McLean atmospheric gas boilers that you're probably looking 75 to 80% efficiency. So we're looking at that as to what a condensing boiler cost would be to replace those, and then cost-wise there as well. Birdsboro, there again, that's just the ongoing discussion if admin's going over there or what's going to happen with that facility. So as I said before, Trane gave me a rough estimate of about $3 million to upgrade that building to a modern control system, modern 4-pipe hot water, chilled water, and new ventilators for the classrooms. If we renovate it for admin offices, that first floor where the library is, we're still going to have to do an HVAC retrofit of some type to give creature comforts 365 there, because right now you either have heating or you have cooling. So those wonderful times of the year, like this year, I didn't turn the boilers on until Halloween, roughly, because it was warm. So one, the chillers were off and the boilers were off. And we're relying on outside air, windows, open windows. I mean, you're not going to have your admin offices in there with windows open and 80 degrees and that kind of stuff. So, so if the decision's made to move admin over there, we're still going to have to spend a good chunk of change to renovate those offices to a DX, a heat pump style console unit in the ceiling for those spaces. And then a lot of the pump insulation in that building, there again is something I have not done because I knew the intent was to close that building down. But if that building is going to be used and the heated and chilled water pumps are going to be used, we're going to need to re-insulate all the pumps. All the insulation's soaked from sweating. It's missing. So we're going to need to do some work there. High school clocks. There's a telecore system in the 97 section of the high school, and there's an old Standard Electric system. had 2 vendors in to look at replacement. We had discussed this the last meeting about putting a master clock in the annex and then start changing clocks. After talking to another vendor, he feels that they can do it a lot more efficient way of doing it with actually replacing the entire system. That it won't be one talking to another and hoping they talk correctly and then going from there. So I'm still working on that, just because of the sheer size of it, trying to get counts and where we truly need clocks and where we don't need clocks. I want to buy clocks for, I think there's 3 in the annex entrance of the gym. We don't need 3 there anymore, kind of thing. So just trying to get that laid out. High school, middle school ductwork installation. If you remember, I showed you pictures probably a year ago of the ductwork that had fallen off at the high school. The ductwork that is starting to fail pretty bad in the middle school. I will let you know that the high school installation at the ductwork installation at the high school is completed. That was done with the roof contract. So we were able to do a certain portion of ancillary work while doing the roof replacement. So they said, is there anything you need done up here while we're here? I said, I'd love for those 4 units to be re-insulated. So they are done. So that's an expense we don't have to worry about. It's a whole lot cheaper doing it while they were there than not doing it at all. But the middle school ductwork is going to need to be addressed here in the next year or 2 before we start having some failures of ductwork due to moisture starting to rust and that kind of stuff. AEC shingle inspection, nails lift and Tremco. The rise, set, east, west, north, south, north, south. West exposure of the shingle section of the roof on that end of Amity, about 3,000 to 4,000 of the nails are starting to push up. When Sensinig was up there doing repairs, they saw it last year or a year and a half ago, and they told me it's getting a little bit worse when they were up there reflashing some of those. They're going to get me a price on opening up 4 or 5 spots of the roof to see what's truly going on with the nails. Is it the wrong type of nail used? Is it, possibly the plywood, being a poor grade of plywood that they may have used? So they're gonna get me a number to see what's going on there. But it's primarily the west exposure on the right side of the main entrance. So if you're at the main entrance, that for whatever reason, that one roof is the worst area. So
Who did the roof?
I think Worco did that when that building was built, because that was, I think they did both the middle school and Amity, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know that for sure. I know Worco did the middle school, and I thought they did both.
How long has it been there?
It's like 15. Well, that school's now 15 years old, or 13 years old, roughly, somewhere in the neck of the woods. So we'll have to see what they come back with. Facility use of software, it's online. We started November 1st. We've had some hiccups, some integration issues between ScheduleStar and our stuff. ScheduleStar, Master Library is actually having an issue right now with the integration between ScheduleStar and them. So we're not the only one being affected right now. They're working very hard to find out what is going on. It was working fine, and then all of a sudden it decided to just, it's picking up the start time of the events, but it's not picking up the end time, so they put a default of 2 hours in. So, which I found that out today. So I'll be working on getting those times changed. We have to go to manually into every event and change the time so people have an accurate idea of when the spaces are available. So, other than that, Kathleen, I mean, you want to add anything to that? It seems to be working
No, it
pretty
seems to be
smooth.
working good, once I figured it out.
Yeah, it's.
It was a long time
It was a long
between
time
when we
for
actually
training.
started and then when we actually implemented it.
Yeah.
So-
So if you go on our website, the Boone website, I think it's Departments, Buildings and Grounds. There's 3 links. One's facility use, There's a calendar there, I think it says a facility availability, and just the calendar will come up and you'll see a whole bunch of colored blocks. Each school has its own colored block. So I initially had all of them blue, and it kind of made a kind of mess of the page. So now one's green, one's orange, one's black, one's navy, one's light blue. So I tried to make them stand out. So if you know what building you're looking for, I think one's purple too. That's that. District vehicles, primarily the vans. The courier van has 140,000 miles on it. The athletic vans are both right around 55 to 60. There's many times 3 vans are needed. So a lot of times the couriers use my truck because it has the extended cab, so they can put their bins and stuff in the back and still haul things. So we're going to be in need of a new van for the courier, and then what my thought was the courier van would go to IT, and they could use that during the day, back and forth delivering stuff, and then if athletics does need it, then it's there for a third van. It's just a van we don't want to continue to put a lot of miles on. Because I think we probably spent, Kathleen, probably $2,000 or $3,000 on that in the last probably 8-10 months.
Yeah, there's been a lot of
Between
work
breaks
on
and
it.
just a lot of little things continue to go wrong with that. So
And the couriers find it very difficult. They're taking the food from one building to another, and if they're using your truck
right,
because there's something wrong with the van, then that food is now exposed. So it's very difficult. And if it's raining, the elements and everything with
Yeah.
the mail sitting in the back, it's not easy with the truck.
no,
So they're specifically requesting, all they need is a van that, they don't need the seats in the back.
yeah. So we're looking like those little
Van.
Ford transit vans, the smaller ones. We have no need to have a real big van for any deliveries. If there's a big delivery, they can use the pickup truck to deliver a big item. You know, they're not delivering huge items every day. So I'll get pricing for that and a couple options of van sizes and see what they have. And I'm going to probably go with the couriers probably one or 2 days the next couple weeks to really kind of just go with them the whole day and see, you know, if there's certain bins that would be beneficial or shelving or something that, you know, we can set the van up a little bit for them as well, just to make sure it makes sense. And then the last item is the GCA ABM update. As you remember, ABM purchased GCA a few months ago. I've met now 3 of the ABM execs in various roles with ABM. We continue to have the same troubles that we had before. It's gotten a little bit better at times, but it's kind of, they throw staff to this building, that building gets satisfied, and these buildings lack. And there's just, the staffing is still a problem. And a lot of the problems that arise are because they're short staffing. You know, the buildings aren't clean because A, they're not trained, but also that they're not staffed. It continues to be a challenge. They had an employee that got his house either home invasion or broken into, and one of the keys, the master key from the high school, was taken with his car keys. So I'm waiting for my vendor to get me pricing on new cores because it's a high school master.
We called them on.
But they're on the hook for that. It's in the contract.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
we're,
but I mean, you wound up doing most of the cores yourself because you couldn't trust them doing it right. So how does that?
AG Morrow is going to give me a price to install them as well. I don't have the time to do 850 cores. I just don't. I just don't. So, you know, so it's you know, just get.
Question. I mean, I know this would make it complicated. I'm just trying to think. I mean, if and when we get car key access places, or, you know, maybe people don't take keys home?
According to the contract, they're supposed to have a key box in the building, and all the keys are supposed to stay here. And they are supposed to have card swipes for their staff to enter the building. That was not getting done. So I have all the card swipes now in my truck with a sign-off sheet for those card swipes. At the same time, I'm going to do a key audit for every employee too and write down what keys they have. So I'll be doing that most likely either tomorrow night or Wednesday night as shift change. So they were missing a couple keys. We were giving them some time to try to track down between their staffing when Doug was here. And now that this one has been officially lost, 1, 10 doesn't matter. And Best and I had many a conversation. The key manufacturer, if we can somehow do the outside cores but still have it work, and they said there's nothing we can do. It's going to be an all or none. And actually I just finished installing all the little odds and ends key cores for, you know, panic bars and that kind of stuff last week. For things that, you know, Aaron and I did initial walkthrough, laid the whole system out, and of course, you know, as teachers have keys, you realize, oh, they use this door for this, and we weren't told that kind of thing. So we had to change some things around, which was nothing major, but other than that, you know, I tried to go through them nice and quick for everybody. I'm just, you know, over these next couple weeks and months, I'm just going to try to really get a good fiscal plan together for the equipment that's needed and some upgrades, because there's still monies out there with MedEd. MedEd's actually extended their rebate program for the electric, so I'm going to look at doing the middle school gymnasium, middle school hallways, because that's another building that is used heavily. See what my rebate would be on that kind of stuff. So we also have a lighting issue at Monocacy in the gymnasium. That's just the technology that never worked from day one. So we're going to be ended up getting a proposal together to replace the lights with LEDs that we can dim and that kind of stuff. So right now it's just a matter of spending a lot of time with vendors and designers trying to get a true idea of where we're at, kind of thing. So, but you know, I didn't want to bring a whole lot into the meeting because I figured, you know, this is the last one with this crew, and I just want to say thanks, and I appreciate, you know, all the time, you know, with you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and I hate to see you two go, but I wish you the best, you know. So, but yeah, I brought the two things I kind of needed answers on, and everything else is kind of a, you know, an overview. So.
And well, Jim had mentioned it when he ran into somebody at ADM. We were told about the problems of getting qualified maintenance staff. I mean, where's that going?
The maintenance guys that we have, now that I know what their abilities are, you know, they're not the fastest guys in the world, but at least they now know the buildings. They know how to check on things, so they're much better today than they were 6 months ago. Still not great. Don't get me wrong. They're still far from great, but they're doing a fairly good job. Like today, I had a couple issues in the middle school. I said, hey, go over and check those units. You know, now they know what to look for when they go into the units. You know, when they first came here, the one guy a year and a half ago, he didn't know what a reset button was for some of the stuff, kind of thing. You know, so they're getting better. You know, I'd like to have still one more good, really skilled guy. I know they're looking for that. You know, but I also don't want to bring a guy in that I kind of have to hold their hand again either. You know, and try to take them around all the buildings, and you know, it takes a lot of time. You know, at least now the guys understand what they need to look for, what they need to look at. You know, I can at least efficiently talk them through it on the phone, kind of thing a lot of times. You know, now it's kind of nice because I can actually have them at the unit, and I can be doing other stuff in my office, but have the HVAC system up and watching the unit and say, okay, now, you know, check this because this is what the alarm came up at, this kind of thing. They don't know how to navigate that system, nor do I really want them to a whole lot, because if you click the wrong thing, you can really mess up a lot of things. But making one simple little change, you know, can really mess up a lot of things. So I was, you know, the new guys, you know, were very eager. The ABM regional manager, after we met with them, literally took every GCA, the management that was here and was involved from day one, took them in a room in Mary Beth Kiesel's old office, and they were in there for about 2.5 hours. So I think he was reading the riot act a little bit, you know, kind of thing, because, you know, he was a little overwhelmed that the problems existed this long.
So are we.
What's the, you had done we were talking about buying the electric, you were saying about, like, we haven't done anything to, like, have an efficiency plan or around managing your electric, and, like, they would, I forget exactly the process, but, like, they would monitor our usage over peak times and different times of, I guess, different times of the year, different times of the day. And if we did a better job of managing the electric throughout the day, we have a better rating and therefore get a better rate. Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yeah. There's two things that you get. There's three things you get charged on in your electric bill: the commodity, the electric, all right, the cost from Direct Energy or whomever who makes the electric and sells it to the grid, and then there's capacity and transmission. Transmission is exactly that. That's how McBennett gets paid to maintain their line. They're getting paid a transmission fee. Capacity is your more or less wear and tear on the grid, for lack of a better terminology. If you abuse the grid, you pay a higher fee for that. If you're nice to the grid, they give you a lower fee for that. So on how not to abuse the grid is to have your demand kind of sit there and do this. You don't want to have a lot of peaks and valleys. PJM, who manages the grid, wants to make sure they're supplying the grid correctly. So they want to just see ebbs and flows. They don't want to see this big spike in the morning, and then it kind of flat, and then a spike at lunch, and then flat, and then, you know, spike at this time. So what I've been doing is I've been looking at the schedules and talking to a bunch of other school districts and a bunch of engineers and saying, you know, hey, I'm doing this, you know, this is where I'm at, you know, is this the right path to be going, and stuff like that. So, you know, and you'll see that over time as to how the buildings are being used. You know, it's just kind of educating the people here as well. And it's simple things of, you know, in the morning, don't walk through the middle school and just turn all the lights on. You know, there's 2 switches for every hallway. It's half the lights. Walk through and turn half of them on until staff starts coming in an hour later, and then go, you know, then as you're doing your rounds, go back and turn the rest of them. So it's just that kind of, you know, just that kind of stuff. It's as simple as lights, but I think at the high school we bought, when we did the LED replacement, I think we bought the better part of 700 bulbs. 700 or 750 bulbs for that upgrade in those hallways. You know, so that tells you how many light fixtures are there. And I was just in middle school now, before I came here, and every hallway is lit up like the building's occupied. So I got to let Jamie know, hey, you know, have your staff, once the staff and the kids go, start turning things off. You know, they're walls. It's a wall switch. It's not like you have to carry a special switch with you. It's a wall switch. If you need them turned on, turn them on and get in there, kind of thing. So, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, they're not used to doing. So we're going to work on it. So, and some of the schedules, like Train has it set up, like, just for example, over Amity Elementary, they have on the first floor, all the evens are on one schedule, classrooms, and all the odd classrooms are on one schedule. You're talking, you have 15 or 20 classrooms that all bang on at the same time. You know, within 20 minutes of each other. You know, so you get that big spike, and then it kind of here, and then, you know, maybe a half an hour later, I have the next class. The evens, now that spikes, and then it, you know, kind of thing. So we're going to work on getting those split into like halves, kind of thing. So I can kind of bring the system on and just kind of sits there and follows a trend as maybe the first 8 classrooms are kind of getting satisfied, the next 8 come on, and then, kind of thing. Right now, and the middle school is very similar to that as well. I think there's 25 classrooms in each schedule. So you're talking, there's a thing that Train has that's supposed to learn how the units are working and how they're satisfying the spaces. So it's supposed to stage them, kind of thing. As I've been watching them in the morning, and they all kind of hit pretty much within 10 minutes of each other. So really, that's not doing us a whole lot. It's going to help us a little bit. But if I can split those big groups into 2 smaller groups and then stage them 20 minutes, now I can try to keep it more even. Unfortunately, our buildings are energy users. It's 7, I think the 16-17 school year was 7 million kilowatts power used. It's a lot. And the average bill at the middle school, it's about 13,000 to 15,000. The average bill at the high school is about the same. It's a lot of electric. It's a lot of electric. So, the more we can do to slowly start to reduce that, because pretty much every 1/10 of a cent, as I said before, as we're buying it, is 70 grand. So if I can save 1/10 of a cent on the capacity side, and what's nice is the capacity side is that's only judged on 5 days out of 365 days. So you got to hit those 5 days and make sure you're doing really well in those 5 days, because there's some school districts that I think we're paying 1.3 cents per kilowatt for it. Their school's paying 0.1, 0.2, 0.3.
Do you know when the 5 days are?
Direct Energy notifies you that they think it's going to be a peak day. It's the summertime.
Okay.
Either the really, really hot days or the really, really cold days.
Our buildings, they all operate with a thermostat?
Yeah.
That you can dial in at whatever temperature.
Yeah, there's a room sensor right back there next to the soap dispenser, the hand sanitizer. So there's a room sensor, and then nobody has the ability to change the set points except for me. If I give them control, then they'd be able to change it, but then the unit would run 24/7 all the time. So our air conditioning set point is 73, and our heating set point is 71 in the annex here. Annex in here, it's 70. Well, it's 70 annex in here, and it's 71 at all the ones with heat pumps. Just because the supply air is not as warm, so it's a little more damp, so it feels colder. Their 71 feels about the same as this being 70, because this is hot. So our supply air is drier and warmer. We're blowing 110, 120 degree air out of these units, 105, 110. Our heat pumps, we're probably lucky if we're getting 95, 90, 95. So you don't get that dry. 71 degrees at the middle school will not feel the same as 71 degrees here. It's a drier temperature, a drier air condition, so it feels warmer to people. It's not as damp. So, some schools are going to 74 and 69, which 69 is a little cold. 74 is a little warm.
What's 1 degree then?
A lot. When you load the classroom up with kids, it's a lot. I have a teacher now at Avenue Elementary. She's very unhappy because I have her room at 71. She wants it at 65. And so there's no way. We've checked her thermostat now 4 different times during the day to make sure it reads correctly, and it does. What happens is it's always Monday morning. She can complain when the unit's been off all weekend. It turns on Monday morning. It's blowing hot air for a longer period of time, makes the air a little drier, so it feels a little warmer. Then we find the windows open today because her room was hot. Well, the unit's sitting there set to be at 72. me 71, and it's rated 70.5. So it's just sitting there running and running and running and running
Right.
because the windows are open. You know, not like the time my wife left the windows open and it's blowing across the thermostat and the radiators are cooking hot, and she couldn't understand why the house was getting hotter as the day was going on. So she opened more windows, but never turned the thermostat down. So my gas bill was 3 times what it should have been that month. So you live and learn, you know. But so we're working on things. I'm just trying to educate people, you know, as they have problems. I try to explain them over the, you know, via email, so they have it to read a couple times and say, hey, you know, here's what's going on, here's what we're seeing, kind of thing. So I'm trying to get people to understand, don't open a window if your room's hot. Please let me know, because it just may be the thermostat. Granted, it's $100 for a thermostat, but we save that in energy when you're not opening windows and the heat's not running and that kind of stuff. So
Right. I mean, I don't, unless the system isn't working, period, I don't know that people should be opening windows
right.
without, on their own. I mean, because you could have people, what if they leave one open and it's
That
open
happens
all
all the
night
time.
and it's 20 degrees out, you know, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Like I was just over at the middle school garage, checking on the outside lights, and the electric heater's there running and running and running and running. There's nobody in there. So they're turned off, and I'll go on the computer tonight and I'll turn it off.
Speaking of lights, how are you going to fix one pole? The whole light out by the.
Yep, that's it. Finally, all the parts finally came in. The pole itself came in. We're on Halloween. The top came in middle of last week. So they have a bunch of pole parking lot jobs they're trying to get wrapped up before winter. So they're supposed to be coming up I think next week they're coming up right before Thanksgiving. And they may even come up Black Friday.
Is that a standard light bulb or is that LED?
That's what was there. That's a mercury vapor, only because I didn't want to put a white light and all the rest have that orange glow. I think it would have looked really, really, really out of place. And that's one of those two. I would love to upgrade those, but for what we only use them, the payback's like 7 or 8 years. So I'd rather kind of do the ones that are paybacks year and a half, 2 years, kind of thing. It was actually more expensive for the LED light top than it was the mercury vapor. It's like $150. So, but it would have been like this bright white light, and all the rest have that nice orange glow to them. So
Then they want to hit the pole.
how that kid hit that pole in the middle of the day is still amazing, and drove away. So, but any questions for me? Like I said, I tried to hit those things really quick just to kind of give you an overview as to where we're at.
Good.
Did you get all those doors replaced? The last time we had like a few sets that got approved. There were some doors, replacement doors that had near the gym and a few others.
I think calf doors, the annex calf and those kind of things, all that stuff's going to be ordered shortly. So I think I'm still waiting for information on that.
How about Baines Wall, sir? Is that done there?
That's getting approved. That's in the solicitor's hands right now.
Okay.
That's where it is. All those things are in the
I
solicitor's
was
hands
against
for review.
the contract review?
Yeah, that's where it was. So, but yeah.
I want that done, Dane. I want
So do I.
There's going to be a ribbon cutting on that?
The Great
Well,
Great
I wanna
Wall
be
of
there for that,
AC.
yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
It really is.
Anybody from the public that just walked in have any questions for facilities?
Never have time like this.
I know. All right, well, my meeting adjourned.